With this video, we are going to cover the entire lesson on permutations and combinations. We'll go through the whole thing. We'll have you pause at certain spots to go ahead and work through the problem, that type of stuff, but we'll go through the entire lesson. The goal of today's lesson is to actually learn how to compute a permutation, also compute a combination, determine when to use a permutation versus a combination, or even the fundamental counting principle. And it helps me count the basic probability of winning the lottery. We're going to use these principles today, combinations, permutations, when we get into probability and calculating probabilities. We've got to be very proficient at these before we can move on to the probability portion. So first, let's start with permutation. And permutations and combinations are how many different ways we can arrange things. There's one major difference between the two. A permutation order matters. If you can remember that anytime, if you can read the problem, go, does the order matter? If the order matters, then we're going to use a permutation. If the order does not matter, we're not going to use a permutation. And order matters. Let's talk about that just for a second. So if we have 6 runners who are running a race, and we want to know how many different ways these 6 runners can come in first, second, or third. So you think about it, does order matter? Does it matter whether you come in first, second, or third, or are those 3 equal? And hopefully you can identify that those are not equal. So order does matter in that case, so we're going to use a permutation there. Now, if we have another one that, let's say you're trying to make the Olympic track team, and they're going to take the top 5 and have them go to the Olympics. So there are 30 people out there, they're going to choose the top 5. Order doesn't necessarily matter there just to make the team. So with that one, we're going to use a combination. Once you get to the Olympics and they're actually running the race, or even if you're seeing which one's going to start, that kind of thing, and the order, then order does matter. But just actually making the team, order doesn't matter at that point. All right, so let's go through here. Let's pull up the actual formula for a permutation. This is your formula for a permutation. It's n factorial over n minus r factorial. And we've got this little notation on the side here. And this notation on the side is going to be really nice. We're going to show you some shortcuts there. All right, now we need to identify what n is and what r is. N is the number that we're choosing from. So let's say that we have 18 people running a race, and we want to choose the top 5 will advance to the next round or something. So the number we choose from would be 18. That's how many total we have. Then the r value will be how many are chosen. So in that scenario, if we have 18 runners running a race, 5 of them will move on to the next round. Then the number chosen would be 5. All right, now let's pull up an example here. This one is a locker combination. A locker combination will open when the right choice of 3 numbers, anywhere from 1 to 30, are selected. How many different combinations are possible? All right, so we first need to identify, does order matter? When you're doing a lock, for like a locker or a combination, anything, does order matter? Or can we put them in any order that we want? And so you can identify that order does indeed matter. So because order matters, we're going to use a permutation. So again, here's our formula for a permutation. Now what we need to do is go in here and identify what our n value is and what our r value is. Our n value is the total number that we get to choose from. And the number here on the combination lock is 1 to 30. So we have a total of 30 to choose from. So our n value is going to be 30. So we've got 30 here. Now what we're going to do is also, since that is my n value, remember that's my n value, here you go, 30 here, then I can fill these in for my n values over here as well, but we'll do that in a minute. We're going to choose 3 different numbers. Those are numbers that we're going to choose because the right choice of 3 numbers, so that's our r value. So now we can start, now that we have our n value and our r value, we're going to start filling those in. The n value is 30, the r value is 3. Now, you can type this into your calculator exactly as it appears right here. This will work just fine. Let's bring in the calculators and kind of show you how to do that. Alright, so this is our calculator. This one is the TI-84. And we're going to do 30 factorial, so we'll do 30. Your calculator has a shortcut on it. The shortcut is right here if we go to Math, and then we're going to go over here to where it says Prob. If we go over here to where it says Prob, then we have this factorial right here, option number 4. Gives us the factorial. Now then we're going to divide that by 30 minus 3 factorial. If you're going to do it just like this, we need to make sure to have some parentheses here. Okay, so we're going to do 30 minus 3, close my parenthesis, Then I can do my factorial. Again, that's found right here in math. We're going to go over to probability and option number 4. Then I can close my parenthesis. Notice how I have 2 parentheses here on bottom. One for the 30 minus 3 and one for this factorial as well. That will ensure that we get the correct answer. So your answer here should have been 24,360. Now, let's pull in the TI. Let's show you how to do the shortcut first. The shortcut on this one, if we get in the habit of just writing 30 permutation 3, we can type that into our calculator as well. 30. Then the permutation is found right here in math. And again, we're going to go over here to probability. If we look right here, NPR, that was our probability. So now we're going to go option number 2, 30P3. Now yours may look a little bit different than this if you're using the TI-83, but it's the same principle. Yours will just, your formation here as it looks on your screen will be a little bit different. But you can hit enter, you'll get that as your answer as well. Okay, now we're going to bring in the TI-Inspire. Here's our TI-Inspire. And the factorial button is right here. If we use this button, then we can come right over here and click on this factorial if we want to. That will work just fine. But we don't need to really worry about that too much. Let's go in here and let's type one in. Let's escape out of that. You can type this in. You can either go to Menu, Probability, Combinations. That will work. That works out just fine. Or you can just type this in. Whoops. Sorry, I did combinations. It should have been permutations. Let's go back and do that again. Probability permutations. There we go. Or we can come down here and just type in NP. Now you notice how these are italicized right now. Watch what happens when I hit the R. That indicates that it understands what you're trying to input in there. It recognizes that formula. So NPR, there we go. And then this is a 30 choose 3. So 30 choose 3. So right here I'm going to write 30. Then I have to do a comma. The comma is right here, right there in red. 30 comma 3. Then just hit enter. Let's bring that over so you can actually see it. 24,360. So that works just fine. So that is our answer on this one. We can simplify it. You can do it by hand if you'd like, but 24,360 is our answer. All right, now we need to have some practice on this. So here are these two. Why don't you go ahead and hit pause when you're ready, then come back to it after you've done the answers. Hopefully you found out that there are a little over 5,100,000 ways that we can have those out of 24 different members. Big thing here is that there are 5: president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and historian. Now, order does matter on this one. There's a big difference between the president and the treasurer. So order definitely matters on that. Runners finishing a race, definitely order matters for second and third. All right, let's try some more. Try these two. Go ahead and hit pause now, and then come back to it after you've obtained your answer. You want to check your answers and make sure you got these right. This one down here, number 2, is an interesting one. You can do a factorial on that one. Just 11 factorial will get you the same thing. So if you were trying to do that for your fundamental counting principle, that works. That works just fine. No problems there. Order does matter because you can't put all 11 cars right in the first parking spot. It's not going to work. Not even if they're smart cars does that work. All right, the next one we want to look at is permutations. Here's our combination for, next one we want to look at is combinations. Here's our formula for combinations. It's really similar to permutations. The only difference is we have this other R, a factorial, here on the bottom that we've got to deal with. So, but if you use the shortcuts on your calculator, you don't need to worry so much about the factorials. You'll just type it in like that and it'll give you your answer. The big thing that we need to understand with the combination is that order does not matter. Okay, this is when if I reach into a bag and I want to pull out 6 different marbles, order doesn't matter. If let's see, if I'm hanging flags on a pole, order does matter because I can't hang them all in the top position. I've got to stagger them. But if I'm just choosing flags, if I have like 40 flags and I'm going to choose 5 of them just at random, then order does not matter. So those will be the big things. If you can just identify whether order matters, it'll tell you whether it's a combination or a permutation. Okay, so here on the next one, let's look at one here, an example. This one says there are 6 books on the reading list, and we want to find the different ways in which a student can read 3 of those books. Okay, so order really doesn't matter here. If we're going to read 3 of them, or if we're going to read the first one first, the first one second, it doesn't really matter the order. So this one's definitely going to be a combination. So because there are 6 books on the list, we have 6 that we're going to choose from. So we go 6, choose 3, because we're going to read 3 of them out of those 6 books. So 6, choose 3. Again, you could type that into your calculator just like we did before, whether it be the TI 84. So here's your TI 84. We'll go 6, math, go over to probability. Whoops, went too far. This time it's going to be option number 3 instead of option number 2 because this one's a combination. So option number 3, 6, choose 3, and then hit enter, and that will get you your answer. There's 20 there. There are 20 there, I should say. All right, now let's bring in the TI Inspire. On this one, again, we can go up to Menu, Probability, Combinations, and then we can go 6, 3, and then we can hit enter, and it gives us our answer of 20. So either way is okay. These are the shortcuts. I would recommend that you use these from now on. But 6, choose 3, that's the same thing as 6 factorial over 3 factorial, 6 minus 3 factorial. Either way that you want to do it, if you want to do it this way, that's fine. There's no problem there. Just make sure you're using your factorial. Make sure you're going to have a big parenthesis before this 3 and right after this factorial as well if you're going to enter them in that way, and that's okay. All right, but that's basically 20. Just entering it in your calculator is the easiest part. So as long as you can get it set up right, then that's the hardest. All right, now let's have you try one. Here are 2 questions. Go ahead and do these 2 questions. After you've completed them, push pause, and then after you've completed them, come on back. All right, here we go. Should have ended up with 6 as your answer on this one and 10 as your answer on this one. Order does not matter. Ingredients, we're just choosing the ingredients. We're not actually mixing them in yet, so order doesn't matter. And then flavors of ice cream, you're going to eat them. Order really doesn't matter in that. You're not choosing your favorite. You're just choosing 3, essentially. So let's get a little bit more practice. Here are the last 2 that I want you to do today. So go ahead and do these 2. Whenever you're done, come on back and then we can talk about it. Okay, hopefully you were able to differentiate. Number 1 is actually a fundamental counting principle, which means basically we're just going to multiply all those numbers together. There are 10 digits. 0 through 9 are the digits, 26 letters, so we just multiply all those across. Number 2 became, some students struggle with that a little bit. These are co-captains. Co-captains, it really doesn't matter. We don't have one that's a captain and one that's the assistant captain. In that case, order would matter. But because these are co-captains, they have the same power. It would still be a combination, so that would be your answer on these 2. And that concludes the lesson for now. We will move on to the next one. You can pull it up. The next one's going to be 10.3. It's going to be a normal probability lesson.